Hello, Summit viewers. I'm Heather McCutcheon, and I'm so excited to be here with my beautiful co-host, Yolanda Williams, who has brought so much to this summit and the global Reiki community. Today, she's going to be talking to us about Reiki as a return to awareness of true nature. I'm eager to hear what Yolanda has to share with us. First, I want to introduce her body of work for those of you who are not yet familiar. Yolanda is an intuitive self-mastery mentor, certified Reiki master teacher, and host of Reiki Radio podcast. She's also certified in wellness counseling through Cornell University, using a blend of techniques to help clients and students achieve deeper connections with themselves, which facilitates new levels of self-awakening and reveals the dynamics of mind, body, and energy. Her methods have helped Reiki practitioners globally, and she's created an oracle deck for seekers and practitioners of energetic alchemy. Yolanda trained with internationally recognized Reiki masters in the lineages of Usui Reiki Ryoho and Jinkiden Reiki. She also trained with shamans and healers of various modalities, increasing her intuitive abilities and exploration of transformative self-observation. Through the podcast, Reiki Radio, Yolanda shares tools to support your spiritual journey, including interviews with healers and authors who practice various techniques. Her classes include Usui Reiki Ryoho, all levels in San Diego, as well as mentoring and intuitive awakening courses online. Her group classes through the Alchemy Circle are open to practitioners of all levels and lineages. Yolanda is also offering an application, the Energetic Alchemist app, which can be downloaded to access more Reiki tools and tips for energetic alchemy. Welcome, Yolanda.
Thank you, Heather. It's so good to be with you again. We're a few years in
We
co-hosting the
are.
summit together.
This has been quite a journey, and here we are with our final interviews, interviewing each other, which is always such a treat.
Yes. Yes. After so many juicy conversations, I'm very excited to sit here with you and see what's new, what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah.
What is the what is true nature from your perspective?
It's really interesting because we do hear this a lot in various, I guess, titles. We hear a lot about true nature in Reiki. We also hear about our purified self or our perfected self. We can call it all different names. And it's interesting because, one, I think for a lot of us, it's hard to imagine that this type of aspect of us would exist, a part of us that's perfected and not worried and not, freaking out about what we're experiencing. But our true nature really is that aspect of us that is beyond our fears, our doubts, and our worries, and that has this real knowing and understanding of who and what we are beyond however we've come to identify as here in this very earthly experience. So, our true nature is really this expression of the divine intelligence that is present in all living things, that emanation of light that is at the foundation of all creation. And again, that aspect of us is, you know, not I want to say influenced by what it is that we perceive at a lower level of our understanding. And the beauty of it, though, is that it is already within, it's already part of our expression. And so I think we recognize it a lot. I actually was talking to someone, or actually in the alchemy circle, we were talking about this just recently, how it sounds like such a big idea. And I think a lot of us have an expectation that if we achieve such a state of being beyond our fears, our worries, and all of these things, that there's going to be like this burst of illumination where it's so obvious to us, like, I finally made it. I've rung the bell. Here I am, the
Rung the bell.
embodiment of the great bright light. And really, when you think about it, we see glimpses of this aspect of ourself all the time as present. Just as simple as, you're walking down the street and someone randomly smiles and you smile back and you feel kind of this warmth. And there's something that starts to tingle within you, this resonance, this recognition of kindness that is our true nature being revealed, so to speak, or anytime we're acting in spaces of kindness without, you know, any configuration of doing it for manipulation. Like I'm being kind just because I feel inspired to be in my kindness or in this grace of love and compassion, but it's not to get anything back. That is expression of our true nature. So we already, I want to say, like, interact with it, and it exposes itself all the time. But it's just that, yeah, I think a lot of us struggle with the idea that it's possible to be such a thing, but we already are.
Yeah, it's so interesting that when you say glimpses, because I have thought, it's like this gradual, you know,
Yeah.
progress, but I do seem to swing back and forth a little bit, especially in these political times. It's
Yeah.
so hard to, you read the news and you panic, and then you're like, wait, I'm spiritual, I'm energetic, everything's working out, it's all okay. And I
Yeah.
going back and forth between the two,
Yeah.
knowing in my higher self everything's okay, but
Right.
also having my human moments of, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's good that you bring that up, Heather, because a lot of us, we do this pendulum swing. But that, even, I hope people can acknowledge as evidence of the work that we do, because it's that ability to observe and recognize while something is being activated and triggered in me, I'm simultaneously aware that there's another part of my expression that has some understanding and, again, isn't attached to the fear or the worry around this. So we already do recognize it again. And the beauty of coming to the stage of observation is that that means we're now working on the refinement piece, where we're starting to consciously choose how to allow more of that expression to be more consistent.
Yeah, as they say, first recognize the
Right.
issue and then work towards. So the
Yes.
fact that I'm seeing, oh, there's two different things. Okay, and
Yes.
this is the direction I'm going.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you always state things so eloquently and beautifully. So true nature, how is it different than how we know and identify ourselves?
Yeah. So there's that. Exactly how you did a great transition for us, Heather. Thank you. So it's exactly that. So there's this other aspect of us that exist that is based on this developed self identification. So we come into this world, and whatever our environment is at a very young age, we start out already with a lot of influence, influenced by whomever is teaching us, influenced by the projections and expectations as we grow, again, early on in life. And so we start developing some type of identity. And we all know we go through, more of a stages in life where we have a bit of rebellion, where we're trying to choose and claim our identities for ourselves. But there's still embedded underneath that the impressions that were put upon us. And so we have this cultivation of self identity that's blended with life experience, what we've been taught, what we've been called, what we've been labeled as, the roles we end up taking on. So there's a lot of belief about ourselves that start to develop on top of our choice in how we may want to be seen or known. So all of this starts to pile up, we can say, on top of that essence of true nature that is still there. But now there's a bit of a, a dance and sometimes a fight around who we are, again, how we want to be known. And we move further and further away from just knowing the truth at the foundation of what is already so. So we do have this self created identity that once we get into this work, we start to recognize and we start to observe, oh, these are my triggers and these are what my beliefs have been. And we start dismantling, right? So now we're wondering why. Why have I been this way? Why do these things trigger me? Why do I believe this of myself? Or why have I put certain limitations and boundaries on me? Where do these stories of what I've believed come from, right? So then we start investigating this created identity. And there are aspects of our personality that, yeah, we're comfortable with. It's true to who we are. But then again, because we start doing this investigation and observation and all of this like energetic alchemy, we also at the same time start to realize, oh, there's an aspect to me that is allowed to be compassionate, which feels really good. I don't have to hold on to grudges. I don't have to be angry about the things that I've just resigned to being angry about. But then there goes the dance that you were talking about, where we start to recognize these aspects that have been, we could say, programmed and conditioned versus the true nature that's also there simultaneously. So, yeah, I always say a big part of this work, I think the biggest hurdle for us is first recognizing that there is this other aspect that exists without trying to defend the identified ego. So, and identified self, because at first, say we recognize we have a sensitivity to something, instead of being able to just look at it and go, oh, that's interesting. Where does the sensitivity come from? The first layer is we tend to be defensive and we want to validate why. Well, yeah, I'm this way because I went through XYZ. And yeah, I'm this way because of da 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 da. So we go through a phase of really defending this created identity. And until we soften around that, then we can start to really recognize all of the story that's beneath that. And we have more
Hmm.
understanding. And then we can finally also move into the compassionate piece that we always talk about in Reiki, having compassion for ourselves. But we can't even really start to crack open into that level of heart intelligence until we can sit with what's true. So, yeah, there are various aspects to who we are in expression. And the beauty of this work is that becomes very revealed to us.
Wow. Yeah. Well, so you've done obviously so much work. You have so much experience. You've had fabulous conversations with, brilliant masters through your Reiki Radio podcast, and you have come all this way.
Mhm.
But where did you start out in terms of your first Reiki class? What did you think about what Reiki was, and what understanding did that class bring you to?
Yeah, so I will say I didn't think it was going to do all of this. So,
You don't know
uh,
what you don't
yeah,
know.
you don't know, you don't know. So initially, I mean, Reiki was recommended to me by an astrologer. And it was
Okay.
just really to help with anxiety. She recommended Reiki and meditation because I was at a crossroads in my life and I was really anxious about it. So she said, oh, you should go have a Reiki session and learn to meditate just to get some clarity about what you want to do next on your path. And so I looked up Reiki and it sounded strange and interesting. So I signed up for a class instead. And in the initial classes I took, this is what's really interesting, Heather, to me. There was emphasis on doing self Reiki, right? Lay your hands on yourself, make sure you practice doing self Reiki, but there was no why. There was just lay your hands on yourself, practice self Reiki. Okay, fine. But a lot of emphasis was placed on how you could be a healer and how you could help other people and, how you can be of service. And of course, that sounds good because, again, our true nature is very nurturing, is very compassionate, does want to recognize the power of our communal nature, right? So that speaks to us. So I think at the beginning, that's really my point of view of Reiki was like, oh, it's this thing that makes you feel calm and balances your chakras and um I don't know. It's really cool. I can feel heat coming out of my hands. And it was so basic, I would say, my point of view. But again, I didn't really know the why, the point
Hmm.
of what it was I was doing in this practice. And the generalized, definition that was given to me at the time was, It's an ancient Japanese technique that will help with pain management and helping to alleviate stress.
Yeah.
So again, there's nothing in that that would make me think this is going to change the way I identify or recognize or know myself. So yeah, in the very beginning, I mean, honestly, it just felt like, I don't know, something to relax and alleviate physical pain.
Hmm. Hmm.
That was it.
In defense of your first Reiki teacher, that is kind of how the westernized version has gone.
Right.
I learned Reiki back in 2010, and it was taught to me in that way. This is
Yes.
a modality, and I've thought about that since I've taken these other classes and come
Yeah.
into a greater understanding. Because I was a massage therapist, was I seeing it that way? Is that what
Right.
I took? That was my takeaway. Did other people take away something different?
Yeah.
But I've even looked back at the textbook, and I don't remember the title of it now, but it was, here's a healing modality. Like,
Right.
paraphrasing, but this is how it was presented. And I
Oh,
was thrilled
100%.
to have that.
Yeah.
But now, you know, learning all the other aspects of it. And I mean, for some of it, in their defense, again, how hard is it to explain? I mean, in Reiki level 1, this is so like beyond your comprehension. What's going to happen? How do you put that
Yeah.
into words? And again, you're very gifted at this, but not everyone is. How do you explain that to people? It's almost
Yeah.
like, here's your starter pack, go, and
Yeah.
then come back to me when you're ready for the next step. And you start to grasp it as time goes on. I think it's really hard for level 1 people to, verbalize.
Yeah, and you know what's so interesting about all of it, Heather, is now there is more conversation, a bigger conversation about what Reiki is and what it's pointing towards. But at that time, and even still now, there is a lot of perspective that it is just this healing modality. And yes, obviously, we know it can be used for those things. It absolutely does help to alleviate pain and stress and all of these. I mean, the work that you do really supports that in helping the first responders and the Chicago Police Department. Like, yes, they need that to support them in this very high level stress work that they do. But as a practitioner, I had no idea of what practicing this consistently was really going to result in.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that's actually what inspired me to start Reiki Radio, because then I started having experiences that were beyond, I'm less stressed and I'm not having like physical pain. What I was experiencing was beyond that. And so that's why I started the podcast, because I was like, am I doing this wrong? I mean, at a point, I thought, am I even practicing Reiki? And then it started spinning out in my mind of like, I don't think I know what Reiki is. And so, yeah, there was a lot of confusion for me.
I just want to, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to keep saying it, how
Yeah.
brave you are. I mean, just the idea that I don't really understand this concept. Something's happening that I'm not grasping. I'm going to go ahead and have these conversations in a very public forum. At the time when you started this, I think you just came
Yeah.
up on your 15th anniversary. Did I see that?
12, 12.
12, 12,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, 12 years. And, everybody who's watching, 12 years ago, it was a very different landscape in terms
Yeah.
of how acceptable it was to have these conversations in public. So
Yeah.
kudos to you for that. And
Thank
so
you.
you went out and started exploring.
Yeah.
And then what happened? How did things shift for you?
Well, so I even said on the podcast back then, I started the podcast in 2013, and I at that point was a couple of years into practicing Reiki. And I said even one time, I don't even know if what I'm doing is Reiki at this point, because I really didn't know. And the reason was because what started happening is I started having these emotional like eruptions, and I started having, I would say prior to, I'm a very logical person, very logical, I wasn't connected with my emotions, so to speak. I would even, if you ask me how I felt, it would come from a very logical place. I wasn't tapping into really my feeling around things. And so for me to all of a sudden be crying about, just whatever, But I started having these realizations and even memories starting to arise of different things I had gone through in life. But it wasn't just the memory, it was this weird understanding of how I understood it at the time versus what was actually going on. So I started recognizing that my perspective was shifting around a lot of ways that I perceived myself, other people, life in general. And so then again, I was like, this is beyond just stress relief. Like, what is happening to me? Something is changing. My mind is changing. Apparently, my emotional state is changing. Like, all of these aspects of how I was functioning was starting to change. And then, like what you mentioned before, I became very aware of like the angel and the devil on my shoulder, right? So then I became very aware of there's a part of me that still wants to be reactive and functioning from hurt and story and whatever it is. But there's another part of me that is clearly like, what are you doing? You have choice. You don't have to defend. You don't have to function from ego. You don't have to harm with your words, right? So all of these different behaviors and patterns, it was like this mirror was placed in front of me and now I understood I was accountable to who I was being. And it wasn't about defending. It wasn't about, oh, I need someone to acknowledge my hurt. No, it was what do you really understand about the power of your words, of your energy, of your actions, and you are accountable to that. And who do you want to be, right? So it just it blew my mind. But the funny thing was, is I was so curious, I kept going, and I really thought like I don't know what's going on, but I don't know if this is Reiki. And then I got an email um, asking me to interview Franz Steiner. And at the time, it was for his book called Inner Heart of Reiki. And the publisher sent me a copy so that I could read it for before the interview. So I read this book, and this was now fast forward to, I think, 2017, maybe. And I read the book and it literally brought tears to my eyes because he was talking about what I was experiencing, but talking about the system of Reiki and what it is pointing to. And then this light bulb went off of, oh my gosh. So this movement of energy is really this process of transformation at a deeper level. This isn't just about like, oh, alleviating my stress. I mean, that's great, but this is going deeper into what has been feeding my stress. What are the stories that I still have? Like, what is in my energetic makeup and function that is contributing to how I've been functioning and understanding myself in life, right? So, anyway, so that book just was like, oh my God, it was like a sigh of relief because then I finally understood the point. Like, what is Reiki really pointing to? And then he became my teacher. And yeah, that's, yeah, it was very validating to, hear from someone who had been teaching for so long and, you know, the brilliance of his work to say like, yeah, I mean, what you're experiencing is an effect of practicing the practice.
And what an incredible manifestation for you from
Yeah.
starting the podcast to get a better understanding and then have that leap
Yeah.
as a result of having started the podcast.
Yes. And he just republished that book. And funny enough, I just interviewed him again, and it's been 7 years since finding it. And so it was just like this full circle moment of, wow, this is how I met you. And now 7 years later, yeah, here we are. Hmm.
So, what in particular in the system of Reiki supports a return to awareness of true nature?
Literally everything. So
Okay.
this was also I mean, it was mind blowing to me, So, really, again, having an understanding of the point of the practice then helped me to go deeper into the practice because, again, now I understand what is happening. and I understand the effect of energetic transformation, but also what the gift of it is, like in a bigger picture. What I understood at first, also a gift, but bigger picture, it just blew my mind. So even down to, as you know, after learning westernized versions of Reiki, I started training with more traditional teachers such as Franz and Arjava. And so I learned a lot more that I hadn't learned before about the system. So one of those being, even with the original kanji for the symbol of Reiki, even the breakdown of that kanji points to what Reiki is pointing to, right? Um, Even when we look at the Gokai, or the Reiki principles, originally when I learned those, it was just like, oh, these are the Reiki principles, memorize them. Okay. And, it was just one of those things I memorized, but I thought of it as like, "Well, how the heck do you do this? Like, how do you not be angry? How do you not be worried?" Right? It was a nice idea. I got the concept, but again, no one said how. How do you achieve this? Yeah. So, what I started to realize in what was happening with me in that recognition of the fear, doubt, and worry version of ourselves versus true nature was, okay, so I acknowledge the aspect of me that is afraid, that is worried, but not from a space of judgment and not from the space of this lower point of view. I acknowledge this aspect of myself from my true nature that has compassion for the version of me that is in my fear and my worry. So there's this integration and embracing of all aspects of who and what we are in expression. But it is that higher true nature that nurtures and heals the aspect of us that needs some acknowledgement and healing and care and love and compassion. So even with the Gokai, it was like, oh, I recognize how these elements arise from what I'm experiencing in this realm. But again, this other aspect that exists is what helps to purify this aspect of me. So the Gokai points to the presence of true nature and the aspect of us that has the challenges. And then even with the Reiki symbols, these I love so much because initially my thought about them was memorize how to draw them. You even have a symbol test in class, like, okay, I know how to draw them. But there was a lot of emphasis on using them in session, like use chokeray to amplify energy or for protection or on your food and all these things, right? Very external.
Yeah.
Use Seihei Ki to help people with mental and emotional balance. Use Honshaze Shonen for distant sessions. Again, studying with my teachers, I started to understand that the symbols really were teachers within themselves. And yes, they have a frequency, as everything has an energetic expression. But then I started to understand, like, oh, the beauty of Chokeray is helping me to recognize how to direct my mind into my being, but not just what I'm directing my mind towards, but recognizing the divine as present in everything that my mind may perceive. That was huge, right? And then Seiheki, recognizing it as a way to have even softening into the compassion for myself, allowing myself again to observe what my stories and my programming is, but at the same time, having the compassion that allows, like, love is like the elixir of healing. You know what I mean? So then again, it was like, oh, this is much deeper, you know, um, whatever. And then Honshaze Shonen, interestingly, the way that I came to understand that was it's not just about, oh, I can do Reiki for someone who's across the planet. This is helping me recognize there is no separation, period. So it's not really so that I can use this like bridge between here and there. It's to help me recognize that I am separate from nothing. And in this non separation, I am already one. I'm already in connection with the one that I'm going to concentrate on. And then again, with Chokeray, I'm directing my mind to the one I'm concentrating on. Honshaze Shonen, already connected to them. So I'm dissolving the illusion of separation. Seihei Ki is making sure that I'm in that frequency of my love and my compassion. Do you see? So it's like it all just went deeper into, wow, this is really helping me understand and have compassion for our human experience and the beauty of what we're learning through the challenges, but at the same time, having access to this piece of ourselves that understands it from a higher lens and we can choose to try again and again to allow that expression to be more potent, more prominent, so that we can go through our own energetic alchemy. So, yeah, I mean, there is nothing within the system that doesn't point to our true nature. I even think of laying of hands. Again, if you imbue the use of symbols in there, you're directing your mind by laying your hands. You're directing your hands to direct the mind to recognize the divine that's already in the person you're in connection with, holding them in the state of compassion. So it's like, it's just such a brilliant system. That's what I'd
Yeah.
say. It's brilliant.
That was one of the mind-boggling parts for me too, the difference between the kind of how we were trained initially in the Western
Mhm.
version versus the more traditional version is those
Mhm.
symbols as a multimedia invocation that the spirit realm is going to come in and
Yes.
do this for me
Right.
versus these are teaching tools for myself, reminders
Yeah.
for myself. That was a for me, like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not at all. And I can totally see, symbol by symbol, how that came to be, how it got kind of distilled down to here's the end result of what would
Right.
happen. But the whole if I do blah, blah, blah went away.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, and there's two things. One, I love that now I recognize the symbols as these mirrors of letting us know that we already embody this technology. We already embody the presence of the divine. We embody compassion. We embody right mind. We embody non-dual, non-duality. But I will say I don't regret at all my initial teachings. I just want to make sure people understand. Like I appreciate what I learned in the Western system and teachings, and for two different reasons. One, because it because it is non-traditional in a lot of ways. I started out with no rigidity around this work, and I really think starting out with those less traditional teachings, it it gave me the, I want to say, like, the permission in some way to be very open in my practice, to allow me to be curious and explore and not put these hard lines on myself around how I was practicing. But it also was just opening the door for me. And
yeah.
so I really believe no matter what anybody's entryway may be, whether it's Reiki, no matter the lineage, no matter the teachings, whether it's yoga, it doesn't matter. It's up to us how far we go once we open the door and cross that threshold. Because
Yeah.
it was my curiosity through what I was experiencing from what I learned in those first classes that led me down a path of exploring deeper the understanding and being in a deep observation of what my experiences were. So I just want to say, for anyone, no matter where you are, that's perfect. Whatever is going to get us in, to give us then the opportunity of how far do you personally want to go.
Yep. Gateway modality,
Yeah.
on ramp, and divine timing. I
Yeah.
mean, whatever is accessible to us at the time when we start
Right.
is what we receive. And
Yeah.
then where it takes us is our own unique path to you,
Yeah.
to the Reiki radio podcast,
Yes.
to us, offering the Reiki sessions and, everybody on their unique personal path, but opening up that door.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's all beautiful, all valuable.
had I not had that, like, bit of confusion in the beginning, I probably wouldn't have started the podcast. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yep.
yeah, just I don't regret any, you know, the sequence of my journey. I'm very thankful for every element of it has contributed to where I understand now. But the beauty is, I know I don't know it all. So,
Right.
like
Right.
in this work, there is really this thing of I get very excited by the fact that I know my understanding, even from where I sit now, is going to continue to expand and evolve. And so, we'll see what comes.
The perpetual on-ramp.
Yes. Yes. Uh-huh. We'll see where it goes. Yeah.
So how does this all these practices support us in our day-to-day life?
So the beauty of it is, especially when we get to the observation piece, which is why I believe it's so important in level one to really give a lot of attention to ourselves in this work, because there's a lot of focus on, like it's spoken about in a generalized way of Reiki with focus on the physical. But again, not just the physical of another person, you and your presence. How comfortable or uncomfortable are you in just being present in your own body with your own thoughts, in your own awareness? Because that really is the first hurdle. We have to recognize how we can be more in relationship with ourselves to then initiate that true recognition of all aspects of how we are identifying and knowing ourselves. So once we do that in our day to day, we have those mindful moments of recognition real time while we're interacting. Like, oh, this just triggered me. But instead of reacting, there is this like quick process of realization of, I could curse this person out right now. Or am I going to be in my calm and my compassion and try to understand their point of view? I could
Mhm.
defend right now and try to justify, or I could just make sure that there's clarity and understanding within this exchange right now. Yeah. So it really helps us with how we are choosing to be in our expression when we're interacting with others. It also helps with how we're in relationship to ourselves, and that then we start to have the awareness of, say, the negative self talk, like when you catch yourself going like, oh my god, you're so stupid, and then but you don't linger in that. It really goes off like an alarm where you're like, what? I just didn't understand. I mean, it's no big deal, it's okay, I'm gonna figure it out, or next time, blah 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 blah, right? So it starts to really highlight in our day to day what our function is, and it starts to bring again to our awareness that piece that I said of the responsibility that we have in our choice and expression, from how we speak, how we act, how we engage internally and externally. And so it can also, by default, then make a huge impact on our relationships, our communication within our relationships. It makes a huge impact on our recognition of what it is we have to be grateful for and what we can appreciate about various aspects of our experience, even the challenging ones. There's a part that softens where we can recognize, like, oh, well, what is this teaching me? Or I understand how I landed here. And now I'm open to other possibility, potential, whatever, right? So it really does have an effect, quite literally, on every aspect of how we are functioning, engaging with the world without, but also the world within.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, when you were talking about when you're feeling triggered and how are you going to respond, and recognizing there's a choice and responding with compassion
Yeah.
and with curiosity about that other person's viewpoint. Boy, if there was ever a time in history when that is needed
Yes.
right now. I mean, you and I are both here in the United States.
Yeah.
We're having some issues.
Yeah.
We know there's other countries around the world having some pretty big issues.
Yeah.
The controversy is high, and boy, is it challenging to
Yeah.
have compassion. So, really, really important skills to be practicing at
But
this juncture.
no, you're 100% right. And that's the thing, is I always kind of joke with myself of these kind of times are really the greatest teachers. It reminds me
Yes.
of sometimes, or one time someone told me, I think the quote was from Ram Dass, where he said, if you think you're enlightened, spend the weekend with your parents.
Yeah.
It's literally that. So I could think like, oh, I'm so light in love, but then I'm watching the news and I'm like, oh, I'm horrified, right? But I also have that remembrance of, well, Reiki says my true nature has unconditional compassion. And in my higher expression, I'm not attached to ba 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 ba, right? So then it becomes contemplative of, okay, well, if I really want to experience whatever this great bright light is, then I have to sit with, and how able am I to soften around what is infuriating me? And again, it's not something that's going to happen in one overnight or one sitting or one moment, but am I dedicated enough to my practice to attempt the process? How do I soften?
Hmm.
How do I even allow myself to consider there's compassion here that can be, you know what I mean? So, and, we talk about practice, the practice day to day gives us all the practice opportunity in the world. And this is where also we start to see that Reiki isn't just a practice to be had in session. It's literally all of these aspects within the system are challenging us to show up in, how do you live this? So, yeah, honey, we're constantly in practice. We want to be.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Lord, give me patience. They don't
Yes.
give you patience. They give you opportunities to
Yes.
be patient.
Be careful
So,
what you ask for. Yeah.
yep. Yep. Okay. So, how about for practitioners of Reiki? How can this support us?
I think once we have a greater understanding of what Reiki really is pointing to, and what it's giving us access to in terms of our realization of true nature, and not just within ourselves, but that same divine intelligence does exist in everyone we see, even the ones that were like, there's no way, right? So it really helps us as practitioners to recognize the depth of this practice. And again, how all of these beautiful techniques can be applied to us, but how they're serving us. So that I think that as a practitioner, going deeper level into all of the aspects within the system of Reiki, it really gives us this beautiful opportunity to witness ourselves in new ways and truly start to experience our life in new ways and do some really deep level healing. Because the thing is, Heather, we often think of our healing work again is isolated to, you're in a session with me, I'm laying my hands, or I'm doing inkaku, I'm working remotely. No, your expression is contributing and influencing every environment you're in. And every thought form you project is having a ripple effect within the collective field. Every emotion you feel is having a ripple effect into the collective field. So, with that understanding, and again, having some accountability to who I want to be in expression, I'm not just the nice healer when you book a session with me. I want that to be the frequency that is more resonant to me, the kindness, the compassion, and this. I want to be the expression of that, so that when I do pass the stranger on the street, what they feel in relation to me is some aspect of kindness and compassion rather than my judgment, fear, doubt, and worry. So I think as a practitioner, it really shows us that, one, we're always in practice, but the result of that practice is going to then cause this this contribution of our Reiki, just by the nature of what it is we are expressing. And so the more we allow the purification, the healing to happen here at home, you're always laying hands, so to speak. You know, you're always sharing the great bright light, so to speak. But it has to be, how much are we willing to cultivate and refine the expression?
Yeah. Yeah. Yolanda, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for, again, the eloquent way that you explain everything. I think even very experienced Reiki masters benefit from the way that you share these concepts. And I just want to thank you for your time with us today. I know you have an
Thank you.
offer for the viewers. Um,
Yeah.
21 days of transformation when you sign up for your newsletter. I know we'll have links below the video, but do you want to
Yeah.
explain a little bit more what this 21 days of transformation is?
Yes. So even just with what we've been talking about, like when we talk about being observers of ourselves, it can sound kind of, maddening or like, what does that even mean? Obviously, I know who I am, but no, it's like giving us a way of honing into various aspects of our expression over a 21-day period. So when you sign up for the newsletter, you get access to a couple of free downloads actually, but 21 days of transformation is one of them. And basically, every day for 21 days, you will watch a short video. They're about 5 minutes long, where I'm explaining the point of focus for just this one day. And so, including within that, or even the Gokai, the principles are in there as well. But every day, you just have one point of focus around your self observation, but doing it from that lens of, I want to understand myself. I want to understand my function. I want to understand my perspectives and points of view. So it gives you just a clear pathway of how to do that. And then at the end of the 21 days, you have been in this conscious observation of yourself for understanding that simultaneously will allow you to work on some of that healing as well. So we're doing, again, observing the created identified self and recognizing the presence of true nature at the same time.
That's really incredible. So, more of this beautiful wisdom, viewers, click the button 21 days of Yolanda and everything she has to offer. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you had also mentioned into an intuitive mastery class.
Yes. So by the time this airs, intuitive mastery will have begun. So the reason I wanted to mention this is because I know through Reiki Raise there have been beautiful offers, discounted offers on my package called Intuitive Reiki. And Intuitive Reiki includes the class Intuitive Mastery and it includes Reiki tools. So a lot of the listeners have, purchased that in the past. So I just wanted to let them know while Intuitive Mastery is usually on demand, you can watch it and go through it at your own time. I will be teaching it live starting November 5th. So you can come to the live classes if you already have access to Intuitive Mastery. If you log into your student portal, you'll see the link to join live. So if you want to interact real time and be able to ask me directly your questions, go through the guided journeys and experiences in a live way, you are more than welcome to join. Again, if you have access, it's already free to you. If you don't have access, you can register for Intuitive Mastery and join us. But yeah, I just wanted to let people know if they have access, the live version will start November 5th.
Excellent. Thank you so much
Yes.
for making yourself available to everyone
Yeah.
and sharing all of your wisdom with us and
Thank
for your
you.
time today. Thank you so much, Yolanda. Always a pleasure. Wonderful to know you're out there in the world doing your thing.
Thank you, Heather.